Anastasia Evstigneeva is a leadership and group dynamics consultant, helping teams to grow fast while addressing typical issues emerging in high-performing or remote teams environment. She is also a psychodynamic coach, trained to apply Freud's psychoanalysis into organizational issues. Does the organization's dynamics reflect the human psyche at a deeper level? How are microtraumas important to develop psychological resilience? Why poor communication is the root of all problems? Meet Anastasia Evstigneeva. Hello, Anastasia.
Hello, João.
Thanks for accepting this invitation and for being on the show. I would like to do a quick introduction about your profile and your experience. You present yourself as a leadership and group dynamics consultant. And quoting you, you also add that you help tech founders and executives to solve leadership bottlenecks, team misalignment, and cultural fiction via psychodynamic coaching so they can grow their companies without internal roadblocks. Wow, it's a powerful statement you have there. So that's why I invited you, because I would like to know a bit more on how you do this. And especially to start, what is psychodynamic consulting or coaching?
Thank you very much, João, for having me. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Good question. A quick introduction on my side first. I'm based in Lisbon, but I'm originally from Moscow, from Russia. And I've spent my career first in finance. For 15 years, I've been in banking in finance. I was responsible for capital markets, for relationship with international clients, and for business development. And like 5 years ago, I understood that I would like to explore more the topic of psychology. And I dived into that, enrolling into the master's program called Psychoanalysis and Psychoanalytic Business Consulting.
Okay.
And it helped me to understand how powerful is psychology in business and how many undercurrents in business we have that we don't even understand we have. So there is a lot of going on in the business that most of the people, leaders, managers, don't understand. And answering your question, what is psychodynamic coaching?
Yes.
Is actually it's a mixture of psychoanalysis, which is actually what was developed by Freud long ago, or 1 century ago, and it's working with the unconscious and working with the psychological defenses in our psyche, and coaching. So it's adaptation of psychoanalysis to coaching, because coaching is just an instrument. It's a wonderful tool that works perfectly, but when it lacks the depth of understanding what is an internal conflict in the psyche of a person, it doesn't help you a lot. It lacks sustainable results, and it can't launch really long-standing changes in the human life. So actually, psychodynamic or psychoanalytic coaching is the adaptation of psychoanalysis, or deep psychology, as we call psychoanalysis, to coaching tools. So it's a kind of synergy that helps to achieve quicker results and launch changes in the human life through the tools of coaching, through the methodology of coaching, which is working with the action plans and starting to implement it from 1 week to another. But first, you need to dive into the internal conflicts of a person. And once you understand what actually blocks the person in his or her development, then you can implement it through the action plan. But without this knowledge, you can't move forward. And that's the power of psychodynamic or psychoanalytic coaching. And psychodynamic is a kind of broader way to call psychoanalytic coaching, because psychoanalysis, as you probably know, is quite a strict methodology. It's like walking 3 times per week on a couch when a person is put into a kind of regression, sitting like behind a psychoanalyst,
Right.
and sharing associations, free associations. So it's a kind of very regressive tool. In coaching, we don't use it. We use a kind of action plans. We use special tools to work with the changes in the external life of a person. Not We don't work too much with the internal reality of a person, but we dive into that to understand what are the roadblocks. And once the person understands that, we can move forward with implementing changes in the external parameter, what's going on in the life of a person. And psychodynamic coaching is a broader way to put it, because in psychoanalysis, you can't use different like tools, for example, drawings, like projective psychological tools like that. And you're just limited to a number of basic tools like free associations and talking, because psychoanalysis is talking therapy at the end. And psychodynamic gives you like a broader perspective and broader variety of tools that you can apply depending on the client and on the specific situation.
Wow. What a deep explanation. So it's not just a fancy word using psychodynamics through coaching. It's a really deep methodology that converts Freud's psychoanalysis into coaching.
Absolutely, yes. And coaching is just a tool. It's just, the open questions, it's the action plans. And through these action plans, you actually help a person to make the small steps towards changes in the life.
Okay.
And you project these difficulties that are in the psyche of a person into specific new actions that a person tries to implement. He has certain restrictions, like a resistance, a psychological resistance. And once a person tries something new, and we meet next week, and we explore what happened with these new actions being implemented, what prevented it to be implemented successfully, then we can, we can project and we see in reality how the resistance works and what kind of blocks project themselves into reality, into specific real actions of a personality.
Okay. I have so many questions surrounding
Sure. Yeah,
popping in my mind right now. So many things, so many different topics. But just taking one step back, Anastasia, because you mentioned your journey in the financial sector, and then now you're working in these different areas. So can you share a little bit about your journey into psychodynamic coaching? What really drew you into this approach?
To start with, first of all, I'm not doing only psychodynamic coaching. I'm first and foremost organizational consultant that applies psychoanalysis and system psychodynamic approach to working with organization and businesses, and even psychodynamic coaching. I apply to working with mostly people from business or with entrepreneurs. So it's not like life coaching, career coaching. No, it's about mainly leadership difficulties, entrepreneurship difficulties, and like business target that can't be achieved because of the internal barriers and roadblocks. So it's about it's broader than just coaching. It's organizational consulting, and I hope we will manage to dive into that later on. But coming back to your question on my journey, yeah, I've been for many years in finance, and 6 years ago, I understood that I reached my limits. I started losing the meaning of what I was doing. I understood that I achieved a lot, and I just lost the sense of what I was doing it for, actually. And at the same time, my job was devoted all the time to working with clients or building relationships. So it was all about communication. But I understood that I was missing like understanding of human personalities, of something bigger standing behind the difference in all of us. And moreover, I understood that being a part of big organizations, I understood that I'm missing the meaning of what was going on around me on a deeper levels, because I couldn't digest the reasons of what was happening through the rational like reflection of it. And I understood that there was something going on in the organizational life that I could not understand, and I wasn't taught to understand. And once I came to this point that I lost a meaning, I started to think what I want to do next, actually. And I came to the idea that I want to study psychology. And I found this wonderful master program in one of the leading universities in Russia, in Moscow, which was called Psychoanalysis and Psychoanalytic Business Consulting. And it's one of the top programs in psychology in Russia. And actually, I think it's one of the few ones in the world itself, because it is arranged by one of the leading professors of leadership from INSEAD, actually, Manfred Katz de Vries. And he's the founder of Leadership Center in INSEAD. And he's actually the managing director of leadership programs in INSEAD. And he was a kind of founder of this master program in Russia as well, together with the director of the program. And it's a very practical program that I dived into for 2 years. And it was a non-stop exploration of myself and of the specifics and the depths of organizational life and psychoanalysis, actually. And I found so many answers to the questions that I had in my mind before that. That I could not help myself not going into this field, not changing the field, because I understood that there is so much going on that most of people in business don't understand. And it's so much value in this knowledge. And this knowledge should be shared massively with the business leaders, because we are facing very difficult times now. For sure, there is a lot of ambiguity, uncertainty, and there is so much demands towards leaders, towards building up human-centric cultures, organizational cultures. But the point is that it seems like the methodologies to do that are old-fashioned, and they need to be expanded, changed. There should be like more depth in their exploration of these topics. And yeah, it's about shifting the concept of tackling these problems, because the old solutions seemingly don't work well.
Not working anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
When you enrolled in this program that you mentioned, did you already leave the financial world, or you were still connected with your previous job?
No. Back then, I was still a part of the finance world. And I even actually wrote my master thesis on the example of the company that I used to work back then. And my master thesis was devoted to leadership in remote teams, psychoanalytical perspective of leadership in remote teams, because I used to be a part of a remote team, and I was always interested being a leader in my previous experience and building up teams from scratch. I was very much interested in the psychoanalytic topic of leadership, how to become a good leader. And is it possible actually to develop leadership skills, or it's like something we are born with originally? And what is the specifics of remote teams? Because seemingly it's a new norm that we have to adapt. And my hypothesis back then was that leadership in remote teams is more challenging and more demanding. And actually, this hypothesis was confirmed for sure. This is the case.
Okay. So I ask you this because you had those questions before. What's happening in my
Mhm.
work environment? I cannot understand what's happening. And then you were able to apply something from the course or from the program into your previous job. Did you find the answers to what was happening?
Yes, and it was so fascinating because every time I adapted my new knowledge that I got from this master program into
Uh-huh.
my organizational life, into my own experience, into the challenges that I had with my team. And yeah, and I found many explanations of what I could not digest and understand back then. Therefore, yes, I understand how it works. It works perfectly. And it's a powerful knowledge that I believe every leader should apply in his practice.
Powerful secret you have there.
Well, actually, it's not a secret. Yeah, it's psychology. It's psychology. To put it like in short, uh, organization is akin to human psyche. And there are many
Mhm.
processes very similar to what's going on in our psyche.
Okay.
And it's about internal conflicts. It's about a lot of irrational emotions that many times are suppressed and are not realized.
Mhm.
And it's about defenses. When it comes to human psyche, we have like psychological defenses that help us to defend ourselves from difficult, complex emotions and events. When it comes to organizations, actually, there happen to be social defenses, very similar to what we have in our human psyche. Because once we enter a group, organization, we have a lot of anxiety about joining this group. And this anxiety, these complex emotions, towards how the relationship will unfold with the leader of the group. If I manage to achieve the goals that I have, what kind of relationship I'm going to have with my colleagues. All of these emotions many times are not understood and realized by people, and actually they're like all together combined. They can form like these social defenses, like organizational defenses, that can prevent the team being efficient and achieve its goals. So many
Mhm.
times when I enter the organization, I try to understand what stands behind the symptoms that manifest themselves as like conflicts, miscommunications, interpersonal problems, low retention. Many times there is a systemic uh, reason for that to happen. And you need to dive into like hidden layers of the system to understand what's really going on there. And it's about, as you wish, organizational culture, but it's about like assumption that we don't understand and don't realize. And it's about what is not spoken uh, in teams and by leaders, but at the end, this is what makes teams dysfunctional.
Where to approach everything that you're sharing. But
Mhm.
let's try it this way, which is, so you mentioned when Freud was working in psychotherapy, in psychodynamics, he used
Mhm.
the couch and the person was not facing the therapist, etc.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work when you're working with
Mhm.
leaders and entrepreneurs. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, you don't sit the entrepreneur in a chair and tell me
Mhm.
about the relationship with your mother, etc. But anyway, which techniques or what techniques do you use to help clients explore those unconscious motivations that you
Mhm.
said that are the drive behind many of the conflicts?
The technique is actually talking. The
Just talking, or
main technique is talking, um, and making connections in what the client is sharing. Uh, One of the biggest revelations for me back then, when I started to study psychoanalysis, was that through our whole life we have a number of repetitive patterns that actually show themselves in our business life, in our personal life. So there is a like limited variety of life scenarios of how we behave in our life through the whole life actually. And most of the challenges that we face, they repeat themselves in personal life and in business life. So they are quite similar if you start to analyze that. And the main technique here is actually understand what kind of scenarios person is locked into. And as I said, there is a limited number of basic scenarios. Normally, they were developed in our childhood. And once a person feels that he's restricted and there are some internal barriers not allowing him to achieve his goals, it means that there is something going on. There is an internal conflict and there is a repetitive scenario that doesn't allow a person to achieve his or her goals. So what I do, I help a person understand what kind of pattern it is and how the reality, the current reality, is different to what a reality where this scenario was formed originally. What makes it different? What are the differences? And this old scenario doesn't work anymore. And maybe it's like a traumatic repetition that the person is like repeating, trying to solve the conflict that was formed back then. Or maybe there is something else, like, as I said, like a pattern that was formed. So we try to find connections into the whole life of a person to understand what kind of scenarios they are and what can be changed to actually to have a broader view on what's going on and to change the scenarios after all. So for me, it's about a freedom for a person to choose from a wider scope of other options.
Yeah.
As we say in psychoanalysis and coaching, we kind of help a person to develop his internal coaching self or psychoanalytic self, somehow internalize me as a coach or a therapist inside a client's psyche, so that every time he experiences a certain difficulty in his life, he starts switching on this like internal voice, trying to reflect upon what's going on now and what can be changed and how he can react differently to what he experienced before. So it's about broadening the variety of scenarios that we are locked in. Yeah. And the main technique is, as I said, it's like analysis of what client is sharing, what kind of like experiences, emotional experiences a client had in his previous life, and what kind of difficulties he's facing now. What are the connection between them? But I also apply several creative tools to help those clients who are very difficult in terms of like sharing their emotional experiences, especially when it comes to tech founders. It's very difficult to start talking about their emotions because they are very much suppressed. And I have a number of creative tools to help these people start talking about that.
Can you share some?
Like asking them to draw a drawing, for example. It's a very popular technique applied by psychologists while working with kids, for example. But it's also very popular when it comes to business and even working with teams. I apply it as well. You can just ask a person to picture something. When it comes to like difficulty, a challenge, you can ask a person to picture that challenge through the drawing. Or there is a wonderful instrument that I apply from time to time. It's called role biography. And it's an analysis of different roles that person tends to have during his whole life, starting from like early childhood to adolescence, then first job and the current job. And I ask a person to draw her role in this particular age. By role, I mean like main function, main activity that's like formed. I don't know, the main activity of a person in these years. And once a person draws these 4 drawings, normally, you can start analyzing what is in common between these 4 drawings, because many times they are all interconnected, and this role developed in early childhood starts repeating through the different ages, and in profession, in career development as well. One of the technique as well. Another technique is actually working with free associations as well. One of my frequent questions that I normally ask is, what comes to your mind? Just like free associate. Or we can discuss the dreams, actually, because dreams help us to have access to the unconscious of a person.
You're also qualified to interpret the dreams.
Yes, I am, but I'm not a qualified psychoanalyst. But I understand how to interpret dreams, and it's not even about my interpretation of dreams. It's about association of a client towards the dreams that he has.
Is it possible to help closure everything that you just described?
Mm-hmm.
Possible to share an example of a client that you applied these techniques
Mm-hmm.
and how you approach it for solution, keeping confidential whatever is needed?
Yes, like many clients that come to me, founders, speaking about the repetitive patterns that especially founders face. One of the repetitive patterns is actually it's difficult for many people who started their career journey in working in the corporate world to switch to entrepreneurship. And the problem here on a psychological level is a kind of unconscious resistance to kind of separate from the family system, and a kind of metaphorically supersede the father's figure, the authority figure that a person had. And it's pure psychoanalysis, as you see. Because actually, it's so fascinating to understand how much psychology we bring towards organizations. Every time we step into organization, actually, we project our expectations on the organization that it will take care of us, actually. It will secure us. And our first experience of organization is actually our family system, because organization is a system, and our family, our parents' family, is a system as well. And it has authority figures. The main authority figure is normally a father's figure. And the mother's figure is more about like nurturing and taking care about. So it's easier psychologically for many of us to have a desire to enter the corporate world and an organization, because it's safer. It feels safer as we are like in our family. But given our backgrounds and our experience with our parents, for some of the people that would like to leave the system can be restricted and like locked in the system to leave this corporate world.
What happens when I leave this system and become an entrepreneur?
Because it's like metaphorically, it's like to compete with the father and to win. And if the father was a very strong authority figure, especially for a man, and he was a good figure, reliable, successful, it's very difficult metaphorically to win him, actually.
What does it mean, winning? Is it like I become a competitor of my previous company?
I become stronger than my father. psychoanalytically speaking. And it's quite a challenge on the unconscious level for most of us.
Okay.
If this authority figure, if our parents' figure was a strong figure in our psyche. So actually, most of the entrepreneurs, because one of like my main focuses now is to study the psychology of entrepreneurs' personality, and the thing is that most entrepreneurs have the same background in terms of psychological development. They had weak father's figure, absent father's figure. So he wasn't very present in their life.
Okay.
Therefore, there was like no one to compete with, actually. And it's easier for them to step up and to become the authority figure themselves as an independent entrepreneur and build up their own system, versus those who had a very strong authority in their parents' figure. And normally these people are very good CEOs and leaders of big organizations because they have this reliable authority figure, and they are very good in like obeying to the rules, although they can go up the corporate ladder very, very nicely. But still, so the personality of entrepreneurs is very different.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yes, and many clients that come to me, they have this problem of leaving the corporate world because they were quite successful there, but they had certain challenges and difficulties there, and they decided to start their own entrepreneur's journey, but they have like internal roadblocks that they couldn't overcome themselves because they don't understand what's going on. And every time we're trying to go back and to analyze their professional development and their childhood experience, and understand what was there and why this corporate system is perceived by them as a very safe one. And one of the like recent cases that I can probably share is like the person who finally understood that he's ready to take this path of entrepreneurs and launch his own business. But it took us like 15 coaching sessions to understand what were these internal barriers, what is in his adolescence and childhood experiences, made him being locked in this like willingness of safety and adherence to the corporate system, although this system rose a lot of anxiety and unsatisfaction in him. So he was all the time, he was picking up the system that disappointed him, actually. And it was very much about his family system as well. But still, he could not leave this system, this corporate world system. And another topic was that it was about consistency of his efforts, because most of these successful entrepreneurs had this very high level of resistance. And the resistance comes from the childhood experience, from the psychological development in childhood and adolescence. And it's a kind of, how to say, balance between traumas and the scale of these traumas. So if the trauma is too big, then the mental health can be like destroyed, and it could be very difficult to digest these traumas. But if you don't have these like micro traumas, like complex experiences while your psyche is developing, if you don't have these micro traumas, you can't develop your resistance. So there should be a balance of these micro traumas to help you develop
perfect balance.
Yeah, develop your resistance.
Okay.
And so that you can overcome these challenges of entrepreneurship. And at the same time, the scale of the trauma shouldn't be big enough
To damage.
to damage. Otherwise, if like you were cared a lot, if I don't know, you were not let out of your house, and everything was like in access to you, you didn't have like challenging experience that allowed you to overcome some small challenges in your childhood, or maybe there was a change of your school, for example, bringing practical examples. Or I don't know, maybe you had like a younger brother or sister, because it's a challenge for a psyche to overcome this understanding that I'm not the only kid for my parents anymore. And it's a difficult experience for a kid to digest. So without these micro traumas, you can't have this perfect amount of resistance.
It's like letting kids play in dirt for them to develop resistance to bacteria.
Yes, absolutely.
You described the part where the leader now needs to leave the whole system and become an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
and having that fear to fail to the previous authority figure. But also the person now needs to become an authority figure in a new family that is creating, right? And the new company that is going to
Mhm.
be the CEO or the leader. Is it also easy for any leader or hard to become this new authority figure when they are used to be working for an authority figure? Does everyone is able to do that step easily?
Yeah, no, and that's normally the case and one of the challenges. Every time you see the leader who is micromanaging his people, it's actually about lack of self-confidence that you are good enough to have this authority to become a leader and authority figure yourself. And as we
Mhm.
say in system psychodynamic approach, there is different types of authority. It actually you have to have internal authority. You need to authorize yourself to become a leader, and this is exactly about like being mature enough to take this internal position of leader. And you, for sure, you have to be authorized formally as well to become a leader. And also you have to be authorized from the below by the employees to become a leader.
Mhm.
So it's a very complex phenomenon of leadership, actually, and how people um, perceive it being a leader and take their leadership. So the problem is that many leaders are not mature enough to become these leaders and to take this authority internally to become a leader. And this is where this all micromanagement, lack of honest, transparent communication starts with. Because when you're self-confident, when you perceive yourself as mature enough to become this authority figure, you behave differently. And this is one of like the topics that I work with clients as well on leadership positions. Yeah, because these internal roadblocks, as we already discussed, they are like the main problem in external communication as well.
What advice would you like to leave today for
Mhm.
someone that is going through the process or plans to leave their own company and start their own company? Besides giving you a call, what advice would you like to
Mhm.
leave to help them through the process or prepare themselves to the reality check that will be the change in their lives?
The main advice would be to understand your motivation, because
Mhm.
many times people make decisions not understanding what drives them, what is behind this decision. And many times entrepreneurs start their business trying to prove something to someone, and it's not about like creating something new valuable. It's not about business per se, it's about their internal conflicts showing up this way. For example, proving their parents that they are good enough and that they can like can create something and can be successful. But the problem is that it's our own motivation that many times it helps us to achieve um, our goals. But the point is, when we achieve it, are we happy? So we need to understand our true motivation
Hmm.
and to find the the true goals that would make us happy and not help us to solve our internal conflicts this way.
In that specific example you gave, you will always be with fear of failing, right? Because your main
Yes.
drive is to look good to someone. So if
Mhm.
I'm failing, and things fail in life, right? It doesn't always is a success. You'll have the drive to avoid fear of failing. What would be like the healthiest psychological motivations for someone to start a business from your perspective?
Mhm.
Just for everyone to do their own self-assessment right now and think, oh, maybe it's not what I'm what is driving me. So maybe let me
Mhm.
rethink my life. What are the
Mhm.
healthiest drives?
To create something new, to create something valuable, to share
Hmm.
it with other people, to develop yourself in your skills, because entrepreneurship helps you to do different stuff, and actually is very challenging in many aspects, but um, it's very good to develop your internal potential, because you try many things, you adapt quickly. So the motivation of like self discovery and growth is a good motivation,
Okay.
and to share your knowledge, your talents through the product to other people.
Hmm. Sounds like adding value somehow, creating
Yes.
something,
Mhm.
learning
Mhm.
something, bringing value and adding value,
Yes.
and not achieving material things or status things, because that may be difficult. Indeed. Okay. We are all imagining that sometimes you need to have very uncomfortable conversations with
Mhm.
leaders and clients, right? So how would you handle resistance and discomfort during this exploration process?
I'm trained to handle resistance, but it's never easy. And in psychoanalytic coaching, we have a very nice thing that helps us to do that. And it's our setting, and it's quite strict setting. How normally the resistance is popping up in the coaching therapy sessions. Clients may refuse to come; they just don't appear to the next session. Maybe you found out something very vulnerable, very difficult to digest psychologically on your previous session.
Mhm.
Maybe you challenge the client, because sometimes you need to confront the client in his way of thinking, and not to agree with him, like giving another perspective. And it's very important function of a coach or psychoanalyst. And after this confrontation, the client may have unconscious aggression against towards the coach, and just doesn't appear on the next session. And in psychoanalytical coaching, we have a very strict setting and rules. We agree with the clients that if they don't show up on a session, they pay for it. And this is exactly done to overcome the potential resistance, because resistance is a normal way of like having changes. Every time you start changing yourself, you have a resistance first.
Mhm.
So it's not something that we are afraid of. It's just a normal way of work and the development process of our psyche. Um, and every time the client knows that he has to pay the missed session, he will think twice to miss it or to come and start talking about these sometimes very difficult topics again.
Now that I paid, I really need to talk about. Okay.
Yes.
How do you see the field of psychodynamic coaching evolving, and what's next?
I hope that psychodynamic coaching will be more popular. I think it's quite popular already, but I hope that it will become more popular among founders and early entrepreneurs. And this is one of like my main goals, especially here in Portugal, because the startup ecosystem is developing rapidly here in Lisbon. And I believe that many entrepreneurs facing the challenges that we briefly touched upon, they need this external help. And at the same time, they don't have enough time to go into therapy, to go into psychoanalysis, because it takes years to achieve like some changes and results. They just don't have enough time for that. And psychodynamic coaching is a perfect symbiosis tool that may help them to achieve their goals and change and overcome their internal barriers faster than anything else.
So putting psychodynamic coaching aside a little bit, because you also work, as you mentioned, with high growth themes and remote challenges. So I noticed that you have a company called Psy Element, which the link is on the video description for everyone that wants to explore deeper. And you also have a framework that is called the Team Navigator, which consists of 4 pillars. Not sure if you created this framework or if you are applying or adapting for some other source. Could you talk a little bit about that framework and the 4 pillars?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. So actually, it's not a framework. It's a tool to make diagnostics of what's going on in team. Just to start from the very beginning, every time I'm invited as an organizational consultant, it starts with a leader approaching me and saying that there is a problem. Most frequent problems are miscommunications, conflicts, low retention. What else? Not achieving KPI, low engagement and initiative of the team, or like low level of innovation and creativity. Being psychodynamically trained organizational consultant, I understand that it's just a symptom of something bigger. So I need to go deeper into the organizational system and the team to understand what's really going on deeper levels. Because it's just a symptom that manifests itself through these communication issues and low engagement. But as I already mentioned, every time we join the group, there is something bigger than we create. It's not about interpersonal problems. It's about systemic issues that we have to understand if we have any or not. And many times, the systemic issues manifest themselves through the symptoms of interpersonal or like team communication problems. And what I do, I first talk to the leader, and then I go to talk with the team members to kind of reconstruct the picture of the team and understand what's really going on there. What is not spoken, actually. What's going on the emotional level of the team, and not only emotional, because complex emotions are triggered in groups because of different aspects. And one of the main aspects that triggers anxiety or like fear or avoidance of responsibility is a systemic issue, like lack of processes, for example. So I talk to team members, and then I try to like reconstruct the full picture of what's going on in the team. And I call it diagnostics or a team checkup. Being a person from the business myself previously, I understand that many times the leaders, the business leaders, I would like to have like objective metrics of assessing the results of my support and my interference. And I understood that if I make a part of these diagnostics that I do through analysis, through manual analysis and in-depth interviews with team members and with the leader, if I do it in an objective way through the assessment tools, it can be a more stable basis for tracking the changes afterwards. So what I do, I developed an assessment tool, and it's called Team Navigator, that has four parameters, and these are processes, engagement, cohesion of the team, and potential. And these are like four main pillars that good team need to have, like four main parameters that can be assessed to understand what's really the problem of the team. As I mentioned, most of the times when you have a problem in processes, and by processes I mean lack of role clarity, a lack of automation, lack of understanding of what's the strategy of the organization, lack of understanding of who is the team member, who is not. And this is normally the case in distributed teams because you are not physically present in one space. So sometimes you struggle to understand who is actually the team member and who is not, who has been onboarded recently or who has left, because you may lack transparency in your communication. And this is a kind of processes thing. Another thing is engagement, and this is more it's more personal thing. It's about individual motivation of a person to be engaged as part of the team. The third pillar is team cohesion, how team members communicate and cooperate with each other. And it's about psychological safety. It's about team norms and rules and team goals that are shared among team members. It's about trust in the team. It's about possibility to share the mistakes, all of that. And how you can make decisions. Are you effective in your decision making in the team? And the fourth pillar is about potential. So is there enough potential for the team to grow? Can we manage the conflicts efficiently? Do we spend enough time on our strategic priorities? Or we are locked in our day-to-day tasks? And all of that. So these four parameters make a comprehensive analysis of what's going on in the team and can quickly help the leader to understand what's really the pain points and how to tackle these pain points. So what I do, every time the leader approaches me, I start with these diagnostics. And before going to have personal interviews with main team members, I ask them to fill in the survey, the questionnaire, or the assessment, Team Navigator, that has 10 questions for each of these pillars, altogether 40. And when I go to have a deep interview with team member, I already have the results of this survey, and I can dive deeper into the pain points that I already see. Moreover, I also ask the leader to fill in the same questionnaire. And then I give the leader the gap between his assessment, her assessment of the situation in the team, and how the team assesses all of that parameters.
Wow. Some of them will be shocked.
Do we have common understanding of the team norms, for example?
And the manager says, yeah, of course. And then the team is like 0.
Yes, exactly. And it's not like very personal questions that team members would try to avoid because I aggregate it on a team level. So it gives team members quite a comfort to be confident in responding to that questions. And anyhow, they respond to the same questions on a deeper interviews. But I want these deeper interviews to be even more deeper and not to spend time on this process, engagement, and very standard questions that I can cover through this questionnaire. So it's a kind of diagnostic assessment tool that helps me to be more efficient. And once I do the diagnostics, I make a comprehensive report showing all these diagrams and answers of the team members to the leader. And I also combine all the deep interview results in a kind of comprehensive report and my analysis, my subjective analysis. But to make it less subjective, I give these diagrams for the leader to understand the objective picture. And this is a starting point to make some changes because we have some parameters being assessed. And then I propose certain recommendation for the leader that can be adapted by the leader himself without my help. For example, if the roles are unclear to the team member and it can trigger a lot of complex emotions in the team members, or even can trigger interpersonal conflicts between team members because their roles sometimes can collide. And that's a simple explanation of why the conflict takes place. So once I see this picture, I give recommendation to the leader and he can adapt them. But part of this job is to have a space for the team to start talking about these complex feelings and what's going on the team level. And here I can be helpful to create this space to have coaching team sessions when we start implementing changes in terms of the efficiency of communication. Let's say we create so-called psychological safety space where all the complex emotions, difficult questions or like issues that the team comes across can be discussed openly. And the changes can be implemented. And the leader can listen to the team and the team members can share the feedback to the leader. And the leader teaches something new and the new patterns of behavior and managing the team. And the team members start to be more engaged and involve themselves into this idea sharing. The idea behind is actually to increase the engagement of the team so that the team can be more self-sufficient and can find solutions of their problems without the leader. And this space is psychological safety space that I help to create to the leader and to adapt new ways of communicating with the team.
So then, what are the biggest challenges that high growth remote teams are facing nowadays? What do you see?
Actually, they're quite basic. Every time I have a new project and a new company, I'm surprised how basic are the problems, and they are very similar. It's all about communication. So when you have rapid growth, the first thing that breaks up is actually communication. Communication within the team, and your processes start lagging behind your scale, your pace of growth. And you don't have enough communication within the team to manage these changes, to adapt the process accordingly. And this triggers a lot of dysfunctions in teams. Yes.
How can communication be an issue nowadays when we have so many notifications, so many Slack channels, so many emails, so many phone? How can still communication be a problem?
Great question. Because it's too much formal communication. It's too much informational noise. But the point is either real transparency in communication. Do we keep our team informed on what's going on when it comes to our strategy? What challenges do we have to overcome? What is our mission? How we keep on with our goals? How we solve the problems appearing? do we really keep our team members involved on the crucial points? It's not about like this sharing of information or noise. Do we share the mistakes that we have? Do we share and discuss the failures that we for sure will have? Because it's not only about victories. Do we have the ways to encourage informal communication while we are remote? Because we don't have these water cooler discussions any longer. And this lack of informal talks actually leads to less engagement of the team members and lower adherence to company, because there is that's a psychological phenomenon actually that I studied in my thesis as well, that the problem of remote teams is lack of geographical time boundaries, and every system to keep like to keep existing, to keep its stability and emotional stability for its members, needs to set the boundaries correctly. And remote teams don't have these psychological, geographical time boundaries. And psychologically, it may influence team members a lot. There are no physical artifacts of the organization, no physical office.
Yep.
There is like, how to say, no physical components of belonging to organization. And without this physical adherence, without this physical proofs that the organization exists, remote teams per se like affect the perception of the team members. Okay. So you have to be more strict in your processes, in setting up these boundaries of your online organization. You have to be far more transparent and consistent in your processes and communication versus just physical organizations.
And in terms of organizational culture, what strategies do you recommend to maintain this culture as a team scales rapidly?
It's all about transparency.
Again.
Yes. And it's about transparency on everything that you do, you adapt in your organization. So you need to have full transparency in terms of all your activities. Ideally, that you have like the shared document that everyone can see, everyone can have access to, and everything is like stipulated and documented there. So you have to refuse this hope that irregular communication can help team members engaged. Actually, it's all about having everything documented, because it decreases the uncertainty for the team members, and it's a kind of develops a stable basis to start from. You also have to think about having informal channels of informal communication for the team members. Because as I mentioned, it's being in the office is very different to being remotely, and you start missing these like talks outside of your offices.
Water cooler conversations.
Water cooler conversations. And at the same time, this water cooler conversation, it's not only about like sharing the rumors of what's going on. It's about helping people forming horizontal relationship inside the organization. And it's very different in remote teams, because you have this one-sided, like hierarchical relationship with the boss normally, but you miss to help people develop their horizontal network of a relationship. And at the end, this is what makes these remote teams inefficient,
Mhm.
and less engaged, because it's all about like being lonely and being
Yes,
on your own and having your own individual KPIs and just reporting to the leader.
exactly.
But it's about actually developing an atmosphere, a
Mhm.
organizational culture of mutual responsibility and accountability to your colleagues. But to do
Right.
that, you have to think about correct metrics of KPIs, and to develop this horizontal relationship between team
Yeah.
members.
Because normally you would speak with people outside work teams, right? And create that personal relationship, which when working remotely, it's very difficult to happen, right? You have Slack, you have Teams, but it doesn't look normal if you approach someone in the structure and say, hey, let's have an informal conversation by chat. It doesn't work, right? Everyone is focused on their KPIs, as you mentioned, delivery as expected, and isolated in their corner of the world. So if the company doesn't share what's happening on the outside, or with other teams, with other team members, with peers, probably you don't know because that information doesn't get to you.
True.
You just focus on your corner of the backyard and you don't see anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how do you approach feedback and performance reviews when the team is fully remote? Any recommendation in order to keep that essence of performance reviews and feedback?
As mentioned, it's so basic actually these days. Some very, very basic things are missing, and it triggers a lot of problems. So it's like similar to normal, not fully remote organizations. You just need to have a regular feedback and performance reviews. But one thing that maybe can be different to remote teams is that the leaders should be more focused on managing results and not the time that is spent by employees on what they are doing. So the management is like need to refocus from managing the process or time to managing the results.
The outcome.
Yeah, and it's about regular feedback and performance reviews for sure. And it's very similar to what you used to have in non-remote organizations.
Mhm. That sounds very good in theory because one of the probably the main reason why people like to work remotely is that they can manage their time on their own, and
Hmm.
they don't need to stay in an office pretending that they are working while they are doing social media and watching emails. So in theory, if you work remotely, you would like uh, put all the focus in work, and then when you're done, you do other things.
Hmm.
So if the manager are also aligned with that, they should see people delivering as expected, not knowing if they are doing 8 hours, more hours, or less hours, but they are delivering as expected.
Yes.
Why isn't it that working that way? So managers aren't looking to the delivery and just the hours that people are working.
Yeah, I think it should be changes in the perspective of the leaders of remote teams, because you can't manage time spent on performing the tasks. You can't just do it, and like implementing tools to calculate the time spent
Hmm.
just destroys trust completely.
Yes.
It's not about managing time anymore, and managers just need to refuse that idea. And why actually they should care how much hours I spent on performing the task if I'm successful in performing these tasks? I would ask another question: are these tasks like KPIs are ambitious enough? Am I fine with the KPIs that I set to my employees? Maybe they are just too low, that I need to manage how many hours the employees like spending on performing. The question is, are we delivering these KPIs? What's going on with the KPIs themselves? How we develop these KPIs? Do team members believe that these KPIs are achievable? So yeah, I would more think about these topics than like keep in illusions that I can manage my employees' time. It's not about that anymore.
Okay. What different things would you recommend for maintaining the team morale and employee engagement in remote high-growth environments?
What else?
Team buildings.
For sure, but not only. It's a kind of plaster, you know? If you are a poor leader and you do team buildings from time to time, it doesn't help. So it's about consistent leadership. It's about being transparent. I'm sharing very basic things, but still, many people fail to do that. It's about leading by example. It's to have more frequent communication that in non-remote teams, because you're just remote, and people may miss this information and transparency. So it's more regular communication that you have to adapt and to have in your team. And it's about accessibility of the leader, so that you don't need to like find ways to talk to your manager. The leader should be very accessible in those kind of teams, so that every time I have a question, I may ask it and the leader responds.
Okay.
It's not about hunting to have a conversation with the leader.
Yeah, that feels very bad.
In absence of this like physical office and physical artifacts of organization, we tend to identify the organization with the leader more. So we need to have more and higher trust with the leader in remote organizations, and it leads to more pressure towards the leader, because actually it's more demanding for the leader to lead a remote organization properly. It's more demanding because the leader is like the main artifact, the main association with the organization in the perspective of the team members. And it entails a lot of responsibility for the leader to behave accordingly.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm a leader or a manager working remotely, and I already check with my team members how they're feeling, I check how the tasks are progressing, what else could I do to increase the frequency of that communication that you're mentioning? What else? Because I don't see any other topic.
What else?
And not sounding micromanaging, right? Because if I reach out to someone remotely and say, hey, how's the task? It sounds like a bit of here I am, here is the guy again, micromanaging me if the task is done or not, right? So I can ask, how's your day? What's happening on your side? But what else?
It's not about you reaching up to people. It's about like having ways to have this communication regularly. For example, you may like have regular informal calls for the team, like coffee, social calls, social hour, during which you just share what's going on in your life.
Informal conversation then.
Informal conversation, yeah, to replace this water cooler stuff. Yeah, and it's about leader as well to share what's going on. And it's not about business at all. But this is what creates this atmosphere of trust and vulnerability, after all, and gives you more context about a person, and helps you like to associate with this person and build this horizontal relationship. And at the end, this accountability to someone else apart from your leader. So I strongly believe that we need to shift towards like from this hierarchical idea of leadership in remote teams to the system of like distributed leadership, like dynamic leadership, when different team members take on leadership for themselves and like feel themselves accountable to other team members. So it's not about responsibility on one leader's figure in this organization, but it's about horizontal chains of relationship and leader's role that are dynamically changed depending on the tasks. That helps you to automatically involve different team members, that help them to identify themselves stronger with the leader figure slash with the organization itself. And at the end you have higher retention, high engagement, and high initiative.
So I'm just picturing the changes in my week.
Mm-hmm.
Every Monday, there is that 1 hour call with the whole team, everyone sharing what they've done on the weekend, sharing pictures. I've been there, I've done that, etc. Then on Wednesday, some kind of quiz with the whole team. And on Friday, before everyone disconnects, like a end of week work party. And that's it. That will already boost the team engagement, the communication.
The idea behind is actually not to have a one size fits all recipe. It's about developing your own solution to tackle the challenges of remote environment.
Okay.
So what I help to do, I help the team together with the leader to develop the practices that will be perceived natural for this specific team. That help them like boost this communication, transparency, adherence to organization, stay tuned on what's going on. But it's not about like quizzes fitting all of the organizations. It's about like finding your own ways to have this kind of informal organization, depending on what kind of organization you have. Maybe you have like a remote team structure with several main locations where people are located, and you may have on-site like informal gatherings by the people in one location, and sharing with others through these like informal regular calls. Or if you are all distributed like in different parts of the world, it's more challenging, and you have to first to think like what time zone would be like similar to all of you when you have your joint call after all, so that all team members are present. It's more challenging. So every time it's a unique thing that you have to think about and to develop your own solutions to the challenges of remote environments.
So I just share an idea for free. That's it. If someone wants to try, go for it.
Absolutely. Maybe it works for someone.
Cool.
I'm not a quiz person.
One of the things that I also, in the end, make our guests go through in a positive way is the versus challenge. So I'll present to you 2 HR related topics, and I'll ask you to pick one as being more important than the other. Then I drop the one that you did not choose, and I put another one. And I do this, and then in theory, in the end, we should have the HR area that you consider the most important of them all. Are you up to the challenge, Anastasia?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start then. Between talent acquisition and training and development.
Talent acquisition.
Oh, that's a surprise. Talent acquisition. So between talent acquisition and compensation and benefits.
Talent acquisition.
Talent acquisition and performance management.
Talent acquisition still.
Okay. Talent acquisition and employee relations.
Talent acquisition.
Talent acquisition and workforce planning and HR analytics. Talent acquisition and workforce planning and HR analytics.
Talent acquisition.
Talent acquisition and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Talent acquisition.
Talent acquisition and HR technology and systems.
Talent acquisition.
Last one, talent acquisition and engagement and retention.
Engagement and retention.
Okay, so in the end, we had a turnaround and we have engagement and retention above all. Thank you, Anastasia, for being part of the show. And for everyone that is interested in reaching out to you or to read more about your work, there are the links in the video description. And good luck in adding value to more startups and helping entrepreneurs to improve their life as well.
Thank you very much for having me, João.
Thank you. Enjoy your day. Goodbye.